Greetings, upstanders. Dr. O here, and I attributed to Dr. King. I don't know if he was the first person to say it, but one of the things I really appreciate that has been attributed to him is the saying is, "I would rather see a good sermon than hear one." And he was just basically talking about people's religion. You shouldn't, and it led me to think that I shouldn't have to know what your religion is by what you say. I should know what your religion is by what you do, how you love one another, how you commit to service, how you, all of those different types of things. And so that was something that always stuck with me. And really, at the end of the day, one of the things my dad said, who was a reverend as well, he talked about, Jesus didn't build any churches. And he was just talking about the idea of the work, of doing the work and doing the work. And so it just has me thinking a lot about these Democrats, because what I'm seeing right now is that Texas State Representative James Talarico is having a moment right now. Very compassionate Christian individual. Was recently on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan talked about how he should run for president and all of that. And he's all over the news right now. And one of the reasons he's all over the news is because, and this also has me thinking about Mamdani, which I'm going to get to in a second, is because of the way that he's actively challenging what the Republicans and these MAGA type evangelicals have been using as it relates to how they preach the gospel and how they talk about God, how they talk about Jesus, and like particularly Representative Mike Johnson. This representative is there challenging them in Texas about why we working on Saturday when the Jewish people are not supposed to be working on Saturday. Christian people are supposed to be resting on Sunday, but we're having to vote tomorrow. Run down the list, right? And again, you get a guy like Joe Rogan possibly endorsing you for president, or at least saying you should run. That's a pretty big deal in the political space. I also contrast that with, or compare that to, New York Democratic mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani, who is, a proud and open Muslim. Now, of course, in the United States, you can't get out there and talk about your Muslim faith as much as somebody could talk about their Christian faith, because people are going to interpret it in so many different ways. But he's very clear that he's guided by, by being a Muslim and by the principles that come from that faith. Again, spirits of service, loving one another, so on and so forth. And people want to try to talk about him as some type of religious extremist. Oh, if he comes in, we're going to bring in Sharia law and all of this other type of stuff and all of this other type of ignorance, of which he's nothing even close to that. But this is my point. Two of the most prominent newer Democrats to the national field proudly and openly embrace their faith. I do not see Democrat. And look, I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just saying, should this be a thing, particularly given the way that Republicans are quick to throw out Jesus' name and God's name and so on and so forth, even though they don't follow many, if and some of these guys don't follow any of the teachings. And we know Trump is not a Christian in any way, shape, or form. But two of the new rising stars in the Democratic Party are these two individuals. And I never hear any of these other Democrats talk about their faith. I don't hear Bernie Sanders do it. The only time I hear Chuck Schumer talk about being Jewish is when he's responding to something relating to anti-Semitism. And, somebody who's been around all of these different faiths, there's so many different beautiful things that can be shared. But it seems like that's something Democrats run away from, separation of church and state, et cetera, et cetera. But look, when you get sworn in, you get sworn in on the Bible. So how separate from church and state are we really? So, look, Democrats, when people want to believe these polls and stuff, Trump is polling at, I don't know, 40 something percent or whatever, 35%, something to that effect. Democrats are at 28%. These guys are trying to rebuild their party. And I am just wondering, and I will wonder what you think as well, if they should be considering embracing being more vocal about their faith. Obviously, Joe Biden was a proud Catholic, didn't run away from that in any way, shape, or form. But one of the things I appreciate that I saw Eddie Glaude say on MSNBC was that people who are people of faith, people who are, devout or really strong in their beliefs, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, and so on and so forth, but particularly Christian, they should not cede their Christianity, their faith, to these MAGA Republicans and the way they twist the gospel. People should own it, they should claim it, and they should talk about it. So I don't know how far Talarico's going to go. I don't know what will happen if Mamdani, if he doesn't win the mayoral race. I don't know where any of that's going. But I do know that the Democrats have a serious problem right now. They have a black woman problem right now because so many black women are feeling like they've been abandoned by the party. You see one of their other superstars who's been a superstar the last, at least probably the last 2 years, at least Representative Jasmine Crockett basically saying she's leaving the national politics. We got the young guys like Maxwell Frost, and he's not somebody I follow too much, so I don't know if he's talking about his faith, but he's out there as an activist. And so I think that embracing the activism, the people on the ground, of course, AOC is a star. So there's a lot of fresh young faces. But I don't. I think the Democrats need to be very cognizant of the fact that the way people are talking about their about faith is something that seems to really matter and resonate with a lot of people across the United States. And if you can, bring people in by showing that you authentically care about the things that are part of your religion, I think that that's a way to attract. And no, I know that more people are becoming less religious in this country, but the fact of the matter is, again, it's about seeing the sermon. It's about seeing the work. It's about seeing you put your principles and your faith in practice and not being afraid to talk about it. And so I would love to see what you think about this, but I feel like this is something that Democrats need to really consider when they're taking the temperature of the room. Some of these Democrats are not even endorsing Mamdani for various reasons, but I fully believe that some of them are not endorsing him because he's a Muslim. I do believe that. We might have a Muslim mayoral winner in Minneapolis. That might be a case as well. And of course, Ilhan Omar has been very powerful as well as a member of Congress. So I know Democrats are in panic mode right now. They're in trying to figure it out mode right now. I think they should take a look at their rising stars, and they need to obviously do more to get back in the good graces of black women, because many black people, particularly black women, look at the Democratic Party as trash right now. And so I think that there's some work that needs to be done. Let me know what you think. Peace.